Hi, I'm Pam Hayes from Hayes Sewing Machine Company of Wilmington, Delaware, and today we're going to talk about the top 5 questions we get about embroidery. So how to do embroidery on your embroidery machine and troubleshooting. You know, this is what's happening, and this is how I would try to solve that problem. Okay, first, my bobbin thread is showing on the top of my design. So if that is the case, when you're working with it, anything you see on the top of your material, top of your fabric, check your bobbin. Okay, so I'm sitting in front of a baby lock right now. So I will take and I will pull my bobbin thread out of the machine, and I will reseat the bobbin. So I'm holding the bobbin.
Give me 2 seconds. Good.
So when I place it back in, I put my finger on the bobbin to hold it, and I bring it over, and I will cut it again. Now, I wouldn't necessarily do this when I'm doing embroidery, but I just want you to see this. When I bring up my bobbin thread, can you see how the thread is going from like 7 o'clock to 12 noon on the face of a clock? Okay, that's where you want your thread to be. If for some reason, when you take your hoop off the machine, your thread is not, you'll see that the thread is kind of wherever it wants to be and is going up the hole. That means it's not in the tension, and you're going to get your bobbin thread showing on the top. All right. Also, make sure that your machines will sometimes have a embroidery bobbin case. So an embroidery bobbin case means that it'll be one that they recommend if you're using bobbin thread. So make sure again you use that, because bobbin thread is thinner, and traditionally an alternative or an embroidery bobbin case, the tension is set tighter. So again, you'll have a much better stitch out result. One of the second ones we had, I'm looking on my list. Second one, puckering on a design. A lot of times that's under stabilization. So make sure that if you are doing a dense design, it takes half hour to stitch this design out, you need to have a fairly beefy or meaty stabilizer. In other words, something like Sulky Tear Easy that you can kind of read text through. That's not going to cut it. Also, make sure that your stabilizer is entirely in your edges of your hoop. People come in and they'll say, you know, it's a poor stitch out, and literally there's no stabilizer here and there's no stabilizer here. You'll never get a good.
So they're just putting a strip of it, like
they're just
if they're
putting
doing
a strip
lettering.
of it, yep, straight across, just basically where the embroidery is, but not in the entirety of the hoop. You need to be in the entirety of the hoop, even if you're doing a practice. I understand wanting to save stabilizer, I do, but you'll never get a really good consistent stitch out unless you have it entirely around. And again, make sure you have enough of a stabilizer. Sometimes I need to put 2 in, depending on how long the design or how many stitches the design has. All right.
Do you use like Mary Ellen's Best Press
Yeah.
on your cotton fabrics, and how would you do that if you did?
If I was working with a cotton material, and I noticed when I was doing my sample it kind of puckered a little bit, I would do Mary Ellen's Best Press, which is kind of like a starch alternative to it, and I would spray the front of my fabric, and I would iron it, flip it over, spray the back, iron it, and that should help you out. All right, third, my embroidery design is not showing up on the stick. Okay, so if you have a more modern embroidery machine, you can do flash drives or USB sticks on the side. First of all, is it the right format for your machine? So baby locks like to work with PES. Modern Berninas, they like to work with EXP. So you want to make sure that you are using the correct format. Some don't mind, some will do multiples, but if you have kind of a 10-year-old and older, still does a USB stick, make sure you have the right format. That's foremost. Second of all, make sure you have the right size. Remember, certain machines can only go up to a certain size. So for instance, on this Baby Lock Accord, 5x7 is the largest embroidery field that this machine will do. So if I fall in love with a design that is 6x10, wonderful opportunity to buy a new machine. Or you can do software if you can reduce the size. But the thing is, know the size that your machine can do. And is it unzipped? A lot of times modern computers will unzip something for you, but if you're working on an older computer, if you look on your flash drive and it's still, the folder still has that zip to it, yeah, the machine can't unzip it. So you need to make sure it's unzipped. And all else fails, go to our website and then scroll down to the bottom for YouTube, okay? Patricia has done a wonderful video on how to transfer designs and everything else, so check that video out. One of the things we had was thread breaking. So if your thread is breaking, how old is the thread? Sometimes it can be just that simple. I know at home, Sunday night, midnight, I'm sewing, trying to finish this up. Thread of questionable origin is on my machine. You know, sometimes that's the issue. Also, make sure you've put a new needle in recently. I am just as bad as everybody else. I've done, 5 embroideries, and then, what's wrong? Change the needle. And if you're using embroidery thread, make sure you're using embroidery needles. The eye is larger, so that will help you out. Remember also that they have embroidery needles traditionally will come in 75/11 size. Sometimes we need to bump it up to a 90/14. Also, when you're working with it, if you need to work with this particular thread and it's kind of fighting you a little bit, try using a top stitch or metallic needle. Larger eye, and if you can, slow the machine down. Sometimes more modern machines will let you embroider more slowly. If you have that as an option on your machine, take advantage of it.
A lot of times that is located in the settings of your machine.
Yes, sometimes when you're working with it, if you have on the Berninas, if you have a slider like this, and the slider will be kind of located traditionally here, that is the speed control for your embroidery. You don't necessarily have to go all the way to the left, which is really slow when you do your embroidery, but nor do you want to be Mach 2 with your hair on fire either, okay? That's all. So when I'm doing embroidery, quite often I'm in the middle. But on Baby Locks, when you are working with the embroidery setting, it is traditionally, if you can change it, under the piece of paper. That's your settings button. And you're going to scroll through, and you'll see where it says max embroidery speed.
Let me see if I can get that a little closer. Got it.
All right. If you can change it, you're going to see that there's plus and a minus. And on this one, you can go down to, I think, 350. That's the slowest you can go. And sometimes on certain threads, you might have to go down that low. Now, I will give you a little caveat on this. If you've changed it in your settings area, you have to remember to go back and reset it again to your higher amount. If you just turn the machine off and turn it back on, that 350 that I have on for max embroidery speed, it'll remember that forever. So we're going to go, and so the next person doesn't hate me, I'm going to put it back. All right, and we talked about the bobbin case. Make sure that, again, you have the correct bobbin case in your machine if you have the opportunity to change that. All right, hope this helps a little bit. Remember, embroidery's fun, so we're going to try to make it fun, okay? and have a great time. See you next time.